Welcome into Courtside Seats with Kroeger, a Charlotte Hornets podcast. Here he is, Chris Kroeger.
Welcome into episode 18 of Courtside Seats. Chris Kroeger with you as we're going to take a look back over what's been a pretty wild last few months as we're almost ready. We are just over a week away from our regular season opener, October 17th against the Bucks. And here we are, 17 episodes before, as we are in episode 18 of our Courtside Seats podcast. We've talked to a wide range of guests over the last few months and started with Mitch Kupchak, our new president of basketball operations and general manager. We got our draft picks and Miles Bridges and Devontae Graham, and now we've seen them not only through Summer League, but into preseason play as well. We got to learn more and really try to get to know head coach James Borrego on a pretty deep level. We stepped outside the team and spoke to some outside media folks for a little while. Now he's gotten back into speaking with other members of the team, and Nick Batum was a guy that we got to spend a lot of time with and get to know Nick a little bit better as we got ready for the season. And so I thought, what a better way to get ready to open the season than to take a look back and discuss and listen back to some of the highlights over the summer from Courtside Seats. And we're going to get things started with head coach James Borrego as he gets ready to be a head coach for the first time in his NBA career, 15 years an assistant with 10 years in San Antonio, 5 years split among New Orleans and Orlando. He spent 30 games as an interim head coach in Orlando a few years ago as he took over for Jacques Vaughn, but he's now the head coach in a regular full-time capacity for the first time in his career, and we've seen the early returns. This team's 2 games up, 1 game down through the first 3 games of preseason play. The offense is firing on all cylinders. The defense looks like it's starting to pick it up at times as well, and we're starting to see some of the young depth that this Hornets team has to offer. And we started our conversation with JB, as he likes to be known, talking about what he saw when he started looking into this Hornets job and applying and interviewing for the position and where he thought this thing could go.
I look at things with this team. It's crazy, JB, because you look at this team the last 2 years, 36 wins the last 2 years, but they have a point differential in the positive each of the last 2 years. And I know that's one thing, but generally that's the profile of a team that's probably at a minimum 500, maybe even a little bit better than that in a playoff team. So there are things about this team maybe you look at and say, why weren't they better, right? What's the difference in the margins between this team being a 36-win team and a 44-win team? Mm-hmm. Where does that fall? So when you evaluate, you come in as an outsider, what do you see when you kind of wrap your arms around this team?
You know, being in the West the last couple of years, I watched the Hornets from afar, but you know, I always felt the same way. Why isn't this team a little bit better? You know, because on paper it looks like there's some names, you know. I think the numbers are good. Obviously, they were well coached. So what was missing? And the more I dig in now, the more I look, the more excited I get, you know. And there's some tweaks that we will make. There's some things defensively, offensively to really open this up. And we don't know where we can be. I mean, we saw a team last year in the Indiana Pacers really surprised a lot of people, becoming a 5 seed in the East, taking Cleveland to, I believe, a Game 7. And I'm not saying we're going to do that. I just want to be relevant again in the East. But there are some pieces already in place that excite me. There's some veterans, some youth, guys that have won at a high level. The more I get to know these players, the more I understand how much they care, how much they want to win. I understand their skill level. I think we can score. I think we can defend. I think we got to get very, we got to really look at closing games. I think a lot of these games in the fourth quarter were lost down the stretch. Mm-hmm. The Hornets would be in a lot of games. That's a positive. You want to be in some close games. Now can you close it? That point differential you speak about, it points to being a very competitive team.
But you're losing in the margins, right? That's what's going on there.
Right.
You're losing clutch situations.
Clutches, one shot here, a free throw here or there, a defensive stop here or there. If maybe 5 or 6 of those games go the other way, maybe I'm not sitting here today. Yep. I mean, we don't know. So
Kemba obviously is another thing you point to too, because obviously it was so stark last year, the offense for this team when he was on the court versus when he's off. And so it's easy also to point to the end of games, and this team lost a lot of those games last year, but you also lose games when you break your lineup earlier in the game and you're not getting the production you need from your second unit.
That's right. And I do think we have some balance. And it's my job now to balance the starting group and the second unit. I always want to make sure we have scoring on the floor. I always want ball handlers on the floor, creators on the floor, and we have a number of those guys. And I think between Kemba, Malik Monk, Jeremy Lamb, Nick Batum, those are 4 creators for our offense. We have shooting on the floor. I like our defensive. The defensive numbers weren't terrible. They need to be better, and they can be better. But I think between our style of play, we're going to pick up the pace. We're going to spread the floor a little bit more. You should see us shooting more threes, getting to the rim a lot more, finding some more opportunities in transition. Between the style of play and our player development, we should see those margins change.
Yeah, because this team a year ago, top 10 in the NBA in three-point percentage, which maybe would shock some people, but they were bottom 10 in attempts.
Right.
So, I mean, the name of the game, Houston's a great example. People talk about them as a three-point shooting juggernaut. Right. They're actually not. They just take a lot of them.
They take a lot of them.
And so the variance there is what allows for that to overcompensate for the lack of maybe percentage. You look at percentage, say, it's a great three-point shooting team. They're okay, but they take a lot, and so they're efficient in how they're playing the game right now.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'd rather have that percentage number come down and take the attempts up. And that's really going to be the challenge for the group. And a lot of it's going to be built out of how we play, in transition, in our pick and roll game, how we spread the floor, our lineups, because Kemba can't be the only one generating offense for us, and he's not. The ball will be in his hands a ton, but it's going to be in other players' hands. He's going to be playing off the ball some, and that's why our player development right now this summer has been focused around playmaking, and Monk has been great already. I mean, Bacon's in here. We've had 6 to 8 guys consistently, core guys, already in the gym for the last 5-6 weeks. And that's a sign to me that these guys want to get better. They're hungry. They get our vision, what I'm trying to do offensively. We've talked a little bit of defense, and we'll get to that at some point. But right now, we're developing our offensive skill level. And so we want those three-point numbers to come up. And even at the expense of losing some percentage. But what that does is that opens up the rim. When teams are afraid of the three-point line for you, it's hard to leave the paint. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Guys are more concerned about getting back to three. So what that does is it opens up the rim for Kemba. That opens up the rim for Malik, for Batum, for Bacon, MKG. There's more driving lanes. So I want to see us more productive at the rim, more productive at the three-point line. And if we're a very good defensive team, which I believe in, the last 3 years I've been with the best defensive team in the NBA the last 3 years. My goal is to be a top 10 defense right away. And that's the goal, that's the vision. Between that standard defensively and the pace and our player development, I'm very excited.
And lastly, just a big pick, because we'll have time to wrap our arms around these guys once we go through Summer League and then really even after that as we march towards training camp. But the 2 draft picks, 2 of the 3 draft picks, because Arnoldas Kuboka is a guy that's going to be playing overseas for a little while. But you talk about Miles Bridges, Devontae Graham. I think they do a lot of what you're talking about, especially Miles. I watch him play. He never stops cutting. Yeah. He's just running off screens and pin downs all the time. And he's got that positional versatility, I think, that seems to fit, obviously, today's NBA, but what you're looking for offensively, too.
That's right. Someone that is athletic, can get to the rim, put it down. He can run, get out in transition. I'm very excited about him. And Devontae brings us toughness, leadership, shoots it well, has won at a high level. Both these kids have won at a high level. I call them elite competitors. And bringing that into the fold, our culture is very healthy right now. The locker room is very healthy right now. These guys enjoy being around each other. They're competitive. And they've won. We have a number of winners on this team that have experienced winning. You can't teach that. You can't teach that. And these guys have tasted it. Now, are they willing to sacrifice, to buy in, pull for one another, and push this organization forward?
Our off-season rewind continues here on episode 18 of Courtside Seats. Chris Kroeger with you. We heard there from head coach James Borrego. Of course, if you want to hear the full version of that podcast, you can go back and find us in Apple Podcast, Hornets.com, our Hornets mobile app, on our Hornets YouTube channel. You can just search Charlotte Hornets while you're there, and anywhere else podcasts are available. We spent nearly an hour with JB back over the summer, so you heard some of the highlights, what he thought when he took over the job, what he envisions for this team to look like, and now we're starting to see it as we're just over a week away from the regular season getting underway. Another one of those guys we caught up with over the summer, and I thought we had an authentic, real, deep, candid conversation with this man, Nick Batum, who's heading into year number 4 with the Charlotte Hornets, which seems almost hard to believe. Nick, of course, missed the first 12 games of last season with that UCL injury in his left elbow, and really took a few months, I think, before he finally got back into the form and comfort level that we're used to. And the Hornets trying to get back to the playoffs for the first time in 3 years, and they'll look to do it under the direction of that first-year head coach in James Borrego. So we got to talk to Nick about what he thinks for this team and what he thinks of the new coaching staff and some of the young guys as well. Malik Monk, what he thinks of him heading into year number 2, and his fellow countryman and one of his best friends in Tony Parker, how that all went down to sign with the Hornets for year number 18 of his career, and what it means for the guys on this roster.
We got a new coaching staff in here. We could talk about that here in a little bit. You talk about how hard you're working. Jay Hernandez, one of our assistant coaches, who's Kemba's skill coach dating all the way back to UConn. Evan Fournier's worked with Jay Hernandez, and he goes over and meets you in Paris. And you're doing two-a-days with Jay Hernandez. And he said, you were telling him, no, coach, let's come back in a few hours. I want to put in that work. So what I guess, one, what was that experience like with him and what a bonding experience? And then two, what did it say for you to have a new coaching staff and this guy came and met you where you were, literally left his country?
That was the first time I had that, like a coach from my team to flew to Paris. That was big time for me, and I was like, you guys are very committed. I loved it. And, we practice at 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. every morning. I said, okay, let's do 4 or 5 p.m. tonight. He said, you're 11? You're 11? You're going to do twice a day in June? Yeah, why not? And in between, I got a lift in between too. So it's like
pre-workouts.
It's like you crazy. This is your year's 11. Yeah, but I fucked up last year. Sorry for my language, but as a team and personally, so I got to give back to it. And that team needs me, and I need to do that.
How cool is that to just get to know him on a personal level? I have to imagine, right? Like you guys, you're eating together, you're spending time together at times too. So how important is that?
But it was huge, and Fournier told me that, I said, you're going to love him.
He's a cool dude.
Fournier is like, Fournier was jealous because I had him for 4 years. It's like, I want to be with you right now, but I can't. I'm not allowed to, but you're going to love him. And he had a great moment with him. We had spent 2-3 weeks in Paris, and we had a great time.
He went and did it with Billy in Spain, too.
Yeah, he did.
Which, to your point, it's just it's not common, and that's really a great way, I think, to ingratiate yourself with a locker room and show, hey, we're serious. It's one thing to say we're about something; it's another thing to actually be about something. And he's intense.
He is.
Jay Hernandez is intense.
People told me when I was talking Fournier, say, hey, it's going to be different with him.
Yeah.
And he was. I mean, he did some stuff. He told me, like, I'm going to feel you like you're bad at basketball.
You know what's great about him? He does. Kemba's show talked about this. He does everything he tells you, hey, go do this. He can do it himself.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah. He's way better than you.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm like, you should sign in 10 days just in case.
Yeah.
He can play.
He can still play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got some great ball handling moves, unorthodox stuff.
He does.
Which I think is great too, right? Like you've been in the league for 11 years. I'd imagine you get stuck in maybe the same routine and training methods, and to have a guy come in and say, no, let's think about this in a different way and show you new things. Like it's got to be fun and challenging to you.
Yeah, that was different, and I never really had that in my career. So, every morning I was like, if there was something new, we never had the same workout, never had the same drills, never. And we compete every day, so that was pretty cool. What
was your first interaction with James Borrego? Was it a phone call?
A phone call. So when he had a job, somebody gave me his numbers, and we talk, and I was in California doing a rehab for my Achilles. I did my rehab for my Achilles in May in LA. We flew there, we had a lunch together. And that was, I had a great vibe with him right away, like from day one. And he understand me. He talk about my new goal for me, the way it's going to make me play, my new position and everything. So pretty cool.
Had you heard of him before? Were you aware of him?
Yeah, I heard about him. Yeah, he was a coach in Orlando, the coach, and I was pretty close to Monty Williams too, so I knew he was in New Orleans as well, and of course San Antonio.
Somebody had used the word to describe him. I think it's a pretty good way to describe JB as, if you could boil it down to maybe one word, intentional.
Yes.
You like that word?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
he's
that.
so, everything he does, I feel like, is intentional.
Everything, every word, every move. I mean, he has a purpose on everything.
And I feel like he's so measured. He's just got a different personality about him.
He's going to be different than Cliff.
Yeah.
He's more calm.
Yeah.
No, sometimes when Cliff got mad, he needed to get behind us to scream a little bit to work us out. He's not like that. He's going, okay, but we have one. We can do that as a player. Yes, he had one. He did it this morning. And that's why I like him, but he's good. He's great.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's so interesting about him, too, is the staff. Jay's one of those, Ron Norred, Jay Triano, who you talked about, Dutch Gately, all the guys that are part of this staff, Chad Iskey as well. I heard JB talk about this the other day where he said he wants a staff that looks different than him, talks different than him, sounds different than him, thinks different than him. Because he wants everybody to be challenged. He wants to be challenged every day. He doesn't want to assume that he's got all the answers.
Yeah, and I like Dutch. He's great. I had Dutch in California like for 10 days. He came. We practiced twice a day, also work out twice a day together. Triano had him in Portland for 3 years, so I'm really close to him. We're good friends. We like talking trash to each other, but no, he's a coach for Canada. I'm from France. We play against each other a lot. So, but he's a great coach, great dude. And all those Jay, I had Jay a couple of times in France. But yeah, they're all different. That's a good thing. They're all different. They all have the same goal.
So did JB come to you and say, hey, we think we might slide you over to the 3? Was that you coming to him? What's going on? Because that seems to be something that's...
I mean, I thought about it a little bit because when I think about the best year I had with this team was my first year, and I was a 3. With Courtney. So I was like, maybe for me, because that's my natural position. I can play the 2, but I'm a really shooting guard, maybe not. Because I think 2 years ago I was the best, if you don't count James Harden. James Harden is a point guard.
Yep.
I was number 1 in rebound and assist for a shooting guard 2 years ago. But I was 15 in scoring.
And I think it opens things up not only for your game, but for other guys too. Of, last year I think it was very tough for Malik. When you get thrown into this league as a rookie, as an 18, 19-year-old rookie, it's always hard. And then you're trying to learn a new position on the fly. Are you on the ball, off the ball?
I think Malik he needed a year like that. Tough year. You need that sometimes to be a good wake-up call.
Nick, he took a week off, that's it. And he's just been in the gym working nonstop since.
Me too, I think I did. Because we ended up playing the 13th. I started practicing the 18th. But I think him and I, we needed that. And I think with him, and when I saw him play like for the last 2 days, I'm like, I think he got it.
Yeah, I think the light bulb's gone off a little bit.
That's normal.
Yeah.
18-year-old, you're from a real country town from Arkansas, spend a year in Kentucky, and move to the big league. You have to understand.
Oh, and then everybody telling you how great you are or how bad you are on either side. You get people saying, what's wrong with him? He's a bust, which is crazy. And then you get other people saying,
he's great.
He needs to be playing all the time. And you just get torn in so many different directions.
And that stuff, and I understand that sometimes you got so many infos coming, like you say, from every aspect. So and I think he needed a good summer to reflect. And I talked to him a lot last year. I'm like, I've been around CJ. I always say that. I've been around CJ. When CJ was a rookie, he was like you. Same thing. He had to understand how to play in this league. Now CJ is great. CJ got hurt his first year. But CJ from little school, he was a great scorer. He came in the league, and he got hurt. And then the second year, he didn't play because at Wesleyan with Barton. So you have to understand. And now he got it, and he's a great pro. And CJ is one of the best players in the NBA right now. And I think Malik is the same as CJ, maybe can be better than CJ.
His shooting ability is just so flawless.
So crazy. That's why I told Tony, so you're going to see him. He's going to be great. And he's great. He's
so
good.
Tony Parker, By the way, you went full Adrian Wojnarowski this summer. You broke the news. You dropped a Batum
He wanted
bomb.
me to break the news. He asked me to break the news.
Oh, is that right? Tony did.
Yeah.
He said, hey, can we sneak this out? You want to send a tweet out here?
Let's say, okay, done deal. I want you to break the news. All right.
I got you.
I got it.
So take us through that. How much a part of those conversations were you of him maybe coming here?
That was pretty funny, actually. He called me in May. We talk like every day because we have a team. We bought a team together in France, so we manage a team together for the last 2 years. And it was in May. He said, when are you coming back to Charlotte? I'm like, first week of June, I'll be in town. I'm like, all right, I'm going to fly with my wife and let's spend a day together. I want to talk to you, a couple of things with you. Because we had I thought it was a team and we talked.
So you didn't think anything was up at this point?
No.
You just thought this is you needed to talk business?
Yeah. So, no, we friends, his wife, my wife, the friend. So I was like, okay, spend a day together. So I go pick them up at the airport in the morning. We got lunch in my house. And so we start talking and everything. It's like, yeah, JB. I know JB for the last 15 years in San Antonio. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, so who we got behind Kemba? I'm like, I don't know. That's what we need. We need a good backup point. I mean, you can be a good fit for us. And we start talking about it.
So had he talked, do you think he had talked to JB or Mitch at all at that point?
Not yet. So that's why the next day when I came back to work out, JB said, we got a shot at Tony.
You told JB that. What did he say?
I said, really? I'm like, I think we do.
I bet he was shocked.
I think we do have a shot. I think he's going to talk to San Antonio first. You see what the Spurs are going to say. I think if we do something not work out with the Spurs, I think we have a shot. Tony and I were really close. And we talked. I didn't think he would do it. I think he said, I wanted to talk to the Spurs. He wanted to end up with San Antonio. If something don't work out with the Spurs, why not? He
feels like he's got something left to prove.
He still can play.
Yeah.
And like this morning, like for an example, he got there last night. So the first day, Monday, he didn't do it. So today in practice, we start 5-on-5. And I throw a lob to Michael Gilchrist, MKG, and we missed. That was like the second player of the first game. He said, hold up, stop. Everybody come here. And he stopped screaming at me in front of everyone. He's killing me in front of everyone. Do not throw a pass like that ever again. Don't do this. Don't do that. This is over. Scream at everyone. And Malik said, we needed that. That's exactly what we needed. He bring this culture, like this Spurs thing. I mean, he had 4 rings, 5. People respect him. And he's been there for less than an hour. He always stopped practice to scream at everyone. And the practice, like the rest of the practice, it felt like we've been there for 3 weeks.
Well, so that's one thing to do that. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can step into that spot and say, oh, yeah. Because there are guys who that have done that probably, not necessarily here, but in other situations where it's like, all right, I'm going to make this about me, or I'm going to put my foot down. But, man, you got to have the resume to do that. 6-time All-Star, 4-time champion, Finals MVP.
And he went at me first. And because people know we like this, we close. And when he went at me, like not as a friend, he went at me like crazy.
Did you make a pass like that the rest of the game?
He's been winning at me for the last 10 years every summer, so I'm used to it.
That'd be the last time you made that mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, but he wants to win. I play with him every summer. The guy gave me like a gold medal. He gave me like big game championship for the French team. I have a ton of respect for him.
Well, and I love Devontae and Miles. I think they're mature for their age. And Devontae, especially a 4-year kid. He's 23, actually, because he played an extra year prep school. Big 12 Player of the Year, consensus All-American. And, I mean, for him to come in and learn behind him, it's going to be huge. Kemba even to learn and take some of the tools from Tony's game and work it into his game.
And that's why, like, people ask me, like, I think that's that type of guy we need, like, a vet. He still can give you, like, 15 minutes. He still have it. No, last year he came back from injury, and that's why he wants to play. He wants to prove he's not done yet. I mean, he's a guy that got a great work ethic. His body language, everything he does off the court is great. He's great. So the guy still had it. I mean, he won't play 35 like he used to.
But 15 to 20 minutes a game, I think, is a number that's reasonable.
And he knows the coach.
Yeah.
He knows the coaching staff. He knows everything. And late game situation or in a locker room we need to speak to someone or to talk to someone, we need a guy like that.
Rolling on episode 18 of Courtside Seats. Chris Kroeger. We've heard from head coach James Borrego. We've heard from Hornets small forward now, Nick Batum. He's going to be playing the 3 this year, sliding over from that 2-guard spot he's played the last few years for the Hornets. And earlier this summer, we also got to catch up with a guy that I think is just one of the brightest in all of the media covering the NBA, and that's former NBA front office man Bobby Marks. He's now the NBA insider for ESPN alongside Adrian Wojnarowski. And we get to talk to Bobby about what he thought of what the Hornets did this offseason, the new direction under President of Basketball Operations and General Manager Mitch Kupchak, and what lies ahead for this team this season.
Gosh, it was really 6 months ago now. That's kind of hard to believe. It's a little less, but almost 6 months ago now that Michael Jordan hires Mitch Kupchak to not only be GM, but to be President of Basketball Operations for the Charlotte Hornets. When you heard that his name was linked to this job and that it was actually going to happen, what did you think, Bobby?
I thought stability. That kind of brings up the first, of course, besides Mitch playing at Carolina and having ties already there, I thought stability was the first thing as far as a proven veteran who has a track record of success with his time in LA, putting together championship-level teams. I know everyone can go back to the summer of '16 with Mozgov and Dangan, but I think we can pick apart a lot of general managers' track record back in the summer of '16. So I don't view that as a fair commentary there. I thought that it's interesting because Mitch inherits a lot. As you know, they weren't able to do much from a free agency standpoint. The first word that when I heard the hire was that it was stability and kind of what's next. We saw what the next was that Steve Clifford's out, James Borrego is in, and then let's see what Mitch can do in the draft, and then with limited resources in free agency.
It's funny just talking to people in the building, Bobby, and people that this is okay. So this is the cool thing about I think Mitch is with the job he's done, and this is smart leadership to me. I think you're right. He's made some changes. Change was inevitable. It was going to happen in some way, shape, or form. But you also need to come in and get a grasp of what's here and what's in place and what you can keep and how you can work with some of the people that have been through the building over the years. And Mitch has done that in talking to a lot of those people. It's just, man, we talked to Buzz last week, and Buzz was saying, Chris, I can't tell you how meticulous this guy is. And he listens to everybody. He's asking questions. He's probing all the time. He wants input from everybody, but he's also rolling up his sleeves. I don't know how many GMs still do this, but he writes his own scouting reports still. So he's still got other scouts doing the work, but he likes to be old school in the way that he's still watching the tape and going and making visits and writing his own reports up. And I think the credibility factor and the organizational skills, it's so apparent when you talk to people inside our building right now, the kind of stability that you're talking about that Mitch has brought to our organization already.
Well, you're right, and I think it is somewhat counterproductive sometimes when you do have a new hire, especially in a leadership position, and that person comes in and just cleans house here. I think we're seeing it in Detroit right now, where and I worked for Ed Stefanski for a while. They basically have retained all the people there. And I think, we did, yes, there are some changes in Charlotte, but, you mentioned, with, retaining Buzz there, that I think you can lean on him. Of course, probably some people are on in an evaluation period of 1 year. I call it a 1 year evaluation period. But it's the people who have been there, and have been through it and know the roster, know the kind of the nuts and bolts as far as what players work and what don't, have a lot better knowledge than somebody that you are bringing in from the outside. And I think that's kind of the approach we see there.
Well, and I thought the trade, so it's funny too, is so that he makes the deal with Dwight, didn't become official until after the moratorium ended. But that right there, a quick decision of, okay, we just talked him from a basketball standpoint, this isn't going to work with what James Borrego wants to do. And, the initial reaction was, well, Mozgov's back. And guess what? No, he's not. That was a deal to lead to another deal, and that's the way a lot of these deals work sometimes. And he stockpiled a couple of second-round picks. By the way, those led to being able to trade up to go get Devontae Graham, who we had a first-round grade on at 34th overall in the second round. And
gave you the cap room, the immediate flexibility to give you the mid-level to sign Tony Parker, use a portion of that for Devontae Graham and add a third year on his contract. And then you flip that again and go get Bismack back here, who's a different type of center, and you acquire a couple more second-round picks. And those might seem like little deals, but I mean, that's where it starts, right? I mean, those are the deals that lead to, just from an identity standpoint, giving yourself flexibility in the long term, but also shaping your roster in the short term to be more of what you need it to be.
Well, you're right, and that's why I hate when we grade, when we grade trades, and because the initial trade, there's always a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 to it, and we never grade. Maybe we grade those down the road, but we don't grade it as a whole. And yeah, I mean the Dwight trade for Mozgov, it gave you the buffer for Parker. I know that Charlotte was adamant not paying the luxury tax, and really that was the only way to do so, was to be able to, it was basically either Dwight or just basically move the Jeremy Lamb contract for nothing and lose one of your better bench players there. The downside, of course, and we all know, is that you take on an extra year. Now it's Biyombo, but I think Biyombo, basically, has a role either, starting and he's been there before. I know different coaches, or coming off the bench. And then, the draft picks turned into Devontae Graham, Tony Parker. Yes, there was a trickle-down effect. So the initial trade always leads to something else. I mean, I think the armchair quarterback could probably say, well, why didn't you just do a buyout with Dwight that Brooklyn did with him? And I don't think maybe there's a time when Mitch says, we tried, or we couldn't get to a number that we were comfortable with to go out and get a Tony Parker here. That $17 million bites a little bit into next year, but you weren't going to have much room already, because you have your big free agent decision is going to be Kemba and Frank Kaminsky, who's a restricted free agent. So, and then if you ever need room, contracts are tradable, or they're stretchable, as we've learned that contracts these days are the stretch provision is a nice little tool that teams have if you ever need to create room down the road, and if they ever needed the room. They certainly could do that with with Biyombo there.
We've talked about this with Mitch, and you can explain this, Bobby. But the thing that was not talked about, I feel like enough, especially nationally, and I get it. It's not a sexy thing, but to me, it is valuable. It is an asset, like we talked about. We got a $7 million trade exception for that trade for Mozgov initially. That's a sizable trade exception. Now that expires in about a year. But for a team that would maybe one way, shape, or form want to do a deal, and he'll keep exploring deals, I'm sure, whatever that looks like. I mean, from a GM standpoint, that trade exception, how valuable of an asset is that? And hypothetically speaking, how could you use something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a trade chip that you have. It's 7.8, I believe, along with Denver. Denver's got a couple big ones from the, from that Wilson Chandler trade. You can. Claim a player off waivers. I think that's a benefit there. I think it could help when we get closer to October with the teams are trying to trim rosters. You can acquire a player that fits in there. I think you have to be a little bit careful based on where you are with the luxury tax there. You can't just go out and sign a player using the trade exception, but claiming a player and trading for a player. And you're right, and you have a full year until early summer to go about doing that. So it is an asset. I mean, we had that in Brooklyn or New Jersey plenty of times where we had a trade exception that we created. There was one time we almost acquired Jordan Hill in a trade by just having the trade exception, and would have cost us the future second round pick here. But it's a nice little benefit, a little under the radar benefit that you do have.
So you talk about Kemba, and obviously everybody's aware of what's going on with Kemba. But so I'll throw this out to, I don't even know if you know this, Bobby, but so over the last 3 years, and this is a 3-year run where, to me, Kemba has solidified himself to be as good as any point guard in the NBA. And his numbers of 22, 5, and 4, and he's shooting 39% from 3 during this run. The only other players in the NBA to be posting any numbers similar to that, Durant, Steph, and Kyrie. So he's just in elite territory in terms of the usage, how high of a level he's performing at, the efficiency of it. And I mean, I think he's still, in some way, shape, or form, maybe the best kept secret in the NBA.
Yeah, Charlotte not being, we get caught up with teams that are in the playoffs in mid-April and May. We saw Donovan Mitchell explode. because he was on a bigger stage. And Donovan had a great year. But I think if you put Kemba on that stage, I know they were in the playoffs a couple years ago, that the under-the-radar player that we see in Charlotte is a little bit different in people's in the perception of people. It will be interesting with Kemba. I think we have a little bit of a false narrative that whenever a player is going into his last year of his contract, that player has to be traded. It's expiring because of the uncertainty if that player is going to be commit there. And I think in Kemba's case, I look at it a little bit differently. He is extension eligible. He's not going to sign an extension. I don't even think Charlotte would offer him an extension based on how low his salary is and how much more he can make in free agency. And he's made it known that he loves playing there. I mean, it's not Kawhi Leonard who wanted to be elsewhere. It's not like Charlotte has the Supermax eligible to sign Kemba Walker and he's going to bypass it to go into free agency. Then, I would probably think about moving him. But he has made it pretty clear that, he wants to win and he loves playing there. I think what you probably have to keep an eye out for him is maybe take his temperature month to month. And based on how the success of the team is going, to just make sure there still is a comfort level that come next July, you're not caught off guard if he does go elsewhere, though. But, you're right. It is the probably one of the under-the-radar secrets in the NBA is the play of Kemba Walker.
And I guess, this is me getting on my soapbox again. A guy deserves more credit not only for how good he is, but when a guy of his caliber, as you're saying, Bobby, says, I want to be – these are his words a few weeks ago, Hornet for life. And he said those words in New York City, his hometown. He said, I want to be a Hornet for life. And there's just not enough of that as much in the NBA anymore. And there's something to be said for that. I think that doesn't get enough attention because, as you said, the outside forces kind of push whatever they think he should do on him, and that becomes the narrative. But that's counter to what Kemba said time and time again.
Well, you're right. I mean, I think, and Kyrie Irving will learn this in Boston this year. I think a lot of it will have to be about blocking out the noise this year for Kemba. And if I were him, I would almost take the Kevin Durant approach, where Kevin basically, I think it was a media day when he was in OKC, basically said, I'm going to talk about my free agency right now, or we'll address it. And then once today is over, I'm not talking about it during the course of the year. And it wasn't an issue for Kevin. It really wasn't. And I think if you let it linger city to city and the same questions, I think it wears on you. But I think if you can kind of nip it in the butt a little bit, the first day of training camp, which is media day, I think that's that changes the narrative. And I think he's been pretty forefront as far as, what his plans are when it comes to, free agency next year.
That's episode 18 of Courtside Seats, a summer look back, an off-season rewind, and a bit of a primer as we get ready for the regular season to start. We're finally going to see when it counts. Next Wednesday, October 17th against the Bucks, the James Borrego era get underway for this Hornets squad, and we can't wait to see that. So hopefully that got you caught up. And, of course, if you want to listen to the full episodes for all of those guests and more, check us out on YouTube. You could search our Charlotte Hornets YouTube channel. All sorts of great content that's being pushed up there all the time. Subscribe there. You could also find us wherever podcasts are available, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher. You look us up, you'll find us there, and also Apple Podcasts. And you could search us, Courtside Seats. My name, Kroeger. You could also search Charlotte Hornets. You'll find us there. Subscribe, download us, rate and review if you don't mind. And we're always available on Hornets.com and the Hornets mobile app. And a selfish plug, if you listen in on the Hornets mobile app, you can listen to the radio broadcast during the game, and also a great way to get involved with us there. So we will see you next week. And it will be game week when it really counts. Regular season starts next week. We'll be back here with another edition of Courtside Seats.